Good morning. Welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Friday, November 11th. It's just about 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm up a little bit later this morning because I was running on a sleep deficit and I could feel it. I needed some sleep and I woke up really early, as I always do, but then I forced myself to go back to sleep. I got out all my weapons, put in earplugs. I don't really need earplugs because it's actually very quiet here at the Kojoy. There's never any noise, so that's not a problem. But somehow earplugs still help me sleep. It's almost like my brain senses this barrier and knows that things are serious now. You know, Doug's body needs some more sleep, and then my brain, just goes back to sleep and lets my body relax. And these curtains are really nice. They're almost like blackout curtains, so the room is dark. But of course I still have a lot of electronics in here, a lot of charging lights, and quite often I'll cover them up, pieces of black electrical tape, because it's amazing, like one blue light when you're charging a battery can light up an entire room. They can be quite bright. So then I'll break out my eye shade as well. So I got the eye shade and the earplugs, and I try to relax, and yeah, I got a couple hours more sleep. Broken sleep. I never sleep through anything. Like even an hour is too much for me. I'll just sort of drift in and out the whole time. But as long as I'm still in bed and my eyes are closed and I drift into a dreamy sort of state once in a while, I recharge a little bit. So 8 o'clock in the morning. Sun is already up behind me, and the sun is kind of a welcome sight because we've had a lot of cloudy days recently. I went out for dinner yesterday later in the afternoon and into the evening, and just as I stepped outside it started to rain again, and then it came down heavy. It was a major downpour, and I had an umbrella with me, but still, as you're walking along in that downpour, you can't help but get, unless you've got like a giant golf umbrella, you're still going to get wet. The rain, will hit your feet, hit your pant legs. I was wearing long pants at the time. Even your knapsack on your back, will still get wet, and it's kind of a miserable experience. But yeah, a lot of rain lately. I don't know if there's any flooding yesterday because of that downpour, but it was a heavy one. There's a lot of big pools of water here in Kuala Lumpur. But today the sun is out, as I said, so that's nice. It's good to see a little bit of sunshine. Things are changing here at the Kojoy Hotel. If you've been keeping up with my life in any way, you know that this hotel is being refurbished and rebranded. And lots of things are happening connected with that still. A crew came in the other day to work on my windows, actually, because they're putting in tinting for all the rooms facing the sun, is what I was told originally. But by my calculations, that would mean all of the rooms. So I think they're putting the tinting on all of the rooms. And we had a, kind of a funny experience with that, because I was told about this rather urgently one morning as I'm leaving. A crew is coming to do the windows in your room, and we got to schedule a time for that, and is it okay to do it this time, that time? Anyway, I got the impression they were coming that morning, so I turned around, came back up to my room, and I moved everything away from the window, took all my electronics and all my camera gear and moved it off the counters. Anything that would get in their way, A, or B, have the potential of getting damaged or covered in construction dust or construction glue or, water, whatever it is they need to do to put tinting on the windows. I didn't know how big a job this was. So I came back up to my room and cleaned it thoroughly, top to bottom, reorganized everything, put everything away so that nothing, could get damaged. And then I stayed out of my room for almost the entire day, to give them a chance to do this, because I didn't know what time they were coming. But of course, when I came back at the end of the day, nothing had happened. The crew, for whatever reason, hadn't shown up. And then I kept my room as organized and as neat as possible for several days, thinking, well, they didn't come that day, they're going to come the next, and then, okay, they're probably going to come the next. And I just lived in this constant state of readiness for the window tinting crew to show up. And then eventually I let my guard down and the room just exploded again. I mean, there was stuff everywhere. Counter was covered, the bed was covered, everything was covered in gear of one type or another. And then, of course, I'm lying here on the bed editing a video. Just, you know, the whole room is a disaster. I'm a disaster. And then there's a knock right on the door. You know, knock, 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 knock. Oh, no. And I go open the door, and of course, there's a woman from the Kojoi and 2 young men here to do the tinting on the windows. You know, it's like, oh, we're here to do the windows. Is it okay if we come in? I'm like, well, yeah, give me a minute. You know, just give me 1 minute. You know, I close the door on them, and I come rushing back in here, and I'm doing the Canadian equivalent of shoveling snow, you know, rather than putting everything carefully away. I'm just sort of sweeping up armloads of stuff off the counter and dumping them into bags and just, you know, just pushing everything into piles and then covering those piles up with sheets and blankets to protect them and get everything out of the way, moving the furniture out of the way, you know, clearing the space on the floor, because even the floor was covered in stuff. And so I'm in here, you know, it's like if I had a snow shovel from Canada, you know, I'd be like shoveling things into the corner to make room in front of this window. And then I have to put on some clothes, you know, and I have to use the bathroom because while they're in here working, I probably won't feel comfortable using the bathroom. Anyway, I was just going to stay in the room. I originally told them that even if they come later in the afternoon when I'm in here, no problem, I'll just get up and I'll go to a coffee shop. You know, I'll just pack up and go. And I left myself in a state of readiness that whole time. I was even like lying on the bed with clothes on, fully clothed, just so that when the knock comes, I can just grab my bag and go. Like I've got my, what do they call those bags that spies have if they have to leave immediately? I can't remember the name. Sort of like a bag you grab that has everything essential in it, ready to go. A go bag? I think it's called a go bag. And you just grab it and you go. And I had my go bag ready. I was ready to go. But of course, by the time they did show up, I didn't have a go bag anymore, and I wasn't dressed at all. And I just said, So I just threw on a shirt, got back on the bed, and yeah, come on in, guys. And do you mind if I stay here while you're working? Just because, yeah, I wasn't ready to go anywhere. So, yeah, they came in, nice guys, and they had all their own equipment. They had stools, you know, plastic stools actually to stand on while they're working on the windows, and they knew what they were doing. They put tinting on the inside, so they didn't. I was wondering whether they would have to clean the windows in and out first, because how were they going to clean the outside? I wondered, but they just cleaned the inside, got that all clean and dry. And then they did their thing with tinting. I look at the windows, I don't see a difference. Like I didn't take a picture or anything or look through the window and make a mental memory of what it looks like. But now when I look through the window, I don't see a difference, but I assume there is one. Whatever this tinting is, it blocks certain rays of the sun from coming in. So that whole adventure is now over. And now, yesterday, they were fixing up the lobby. I went down there I forget what time I went down. But yeah, there was a big crew in the lobby this time. And there's a big reception desk for the hotel, you know, in the lobby. And that whole desk had moved forward by like 10 feet. And I thought, wow, they're expanding the area, you know, behind there. What are they going to put office space back there or do something? And I spoke to the boss, you know, the manager here, and he says, no, we're actually putting in a new reception desk. This one, they're just going to get rid of the old one, and they're putting in a new fancy one, very high. I saw it later on, very high, with a curved ends, you know, very professional looking, you know, so they're upgrading everything in the Kojoi. And yesterday it was the turn of the lobby to be upgraded. You know, they're busy down there painting and things like that all the time, but now they're putting in the new reception desk. I haven't seen it yet, so I haven't seen it completed. I'll see that today, I guess. So yeah, life goes on in the Kojoi. Still enjoying this room very much. Love the air conditioning, love the Wi-Fi, love the bathroom, love the water filter machine on the outside, because it gives me both hot and cold water. I don't need hot because I actually, you know, I boil my own water for coffee. I ran out of creamer this morning, by the way, so I'm drinking relatively bitter black instant coffee this morning. yeah, not a fan. I need a little bit of a smoothness of some cream in there to give me that flavor that I crave. But yeah, get ice cold water out of there. It comes out like at a Canadian level of cold for drinking. So I fill up my bottle, and then I go out there and I fill up my water bottle. I've got a small plastic bottle I'm using, and I fill it up, and then I walk away from the machine. I start drinking. It's empty by the time I get to my door, which is like 6 feet away. You know, it's just like, whoo, it's gone. So then I go back and refill it and, you know, get a second bottle. But yeah, I love that cold water. And if my kettle didn't work, I could get, the water seems to be hot enough to make coffee with. So when it comes out of there, so I could use that for coffee in the morning too, if I needed to. Yeah, I love that machine. The elevator is great. I've lived most of my life without elevators, I think. Even when I was living in Taiwan, I was there for a lot of years in Taipei. I guess I tend to put down roots and stay, because when I first got to Taiwan long ago, I just moved into a rather unusual backpackers hostel. Kind of a crazy place filled with, you know, completely or medium or just low-level crazy people. Everybody there was crazy, including me in my own way, in one fashion or another. These were all travelers, long-term backpackers, English teachers, people who have been living in that hostel for years, you know, teaching English in Taiwan. That kind of an environment. And then I stayed in the hostel, which I like. I like those environments. I like being in a communal place where you have your own private room, but you're sharing the space with a lot of other people. It kind of forces something like a social life on you. Not always the social life that you want or that you would seek out normally, but it is a form of social life. I had a similar experience in South Korea when I went there, and it's interesting that when you arrive at a place, for me anyway, my first day or two sets the tone for my entire experience of that place. It's almost like, I've never had to do this, which I'm kind of grateful for. Like, it's almost like a child going to a new school. You know, they live here, go to this elementary school, they have their friends at that school. I can't imagine what it would be like for that child to move to a new town, and the first day at a new school where everyone at that school already knows each other and all the friend groups have been formed already. And then you show up as the brand new person. If that first day doesn't go well, like you don't click with anybody, like nothing magical happens, how horrible, how miserable could your life end up being in that place? Right? I never did that. I went to the same elementary school my entire, you know, childhood when I was going to grades 1 through 8 in Canada. I went to the same high school for grades 9 to 13. We had up to grade 13 in Ontario in Canada at that time. So I never had to change schools, and I never had to face, you know, the stress of that first day, and then, you know, do you meet anyone, do you not? And I think your entire life can be transformed through luck. If on that first day you just happen to run into and meet that one person that you click with for some reason, or even a group of people, it can make all the difference. And I find it's true even as an adult. You go to a place, when you first arrive, it can really have a big effect on your overall experience long term. And I remember when I arrived in Seoul in South Korea, long story, which I won't tell the whole story, but I stayed at a similar kind of hostel. It was actually a traditional Korean inn that they call a yogwan. And it was well known in backpacker circles back in those days that travelers would stay at this place a lot. The Indaewon, in case anyone has ever heard of the famous Indaewon. So I went to the Indaewon, and it just happened to be filled with British and Australian and American people just like me, relatively, you know, similar ages, traveling, looking for work as English teachers, and they were all living there, and they became my social world. all the people that were staying in that hostel when I first arrived. Even when I moved out eventually from that hostel into my own apartment, which by the way was a mistake. I just should have stayed there. But people kept telling me, oh, you should get an apartment, you should move into an apartment, more comfortable. And I eventually listened to people, being a dummy. And I did move out and got an apartment, and it was not a great experience. And I really missed my life at the hostels that I was staying in. But even when I did move out and go into an apartment, I was still in touch with all those people that I met at the hostel. And in fact, I've been reconnecting with some of them today, because we eventually all split up and went all around the world. We're not all still living in Korea, so we all parted ways eventually. But through Facebook, you can eventually now track people down easier. This was all taking place in the days before the internet, so you couldn't really stay in touch with people the way you can today. Both a curse and a blessing, I must say. Oh boy, that's a topic, isn't it? How the internet and being able to stay in touch with people long term. Yeah, that's changed life a lot. For the good and for the terrible at the same time. Your first few days can have a big effect on your time overall, when you get to a new place. And I was thinking about that. I think I started thinking about that because I'm having some trouble settling into my neighborhood here in Kuala Lumpur. And thinking back, I was in this neighborhood before when I stayed in Kuala Lumpur quite a long time before. And I was staying at what was called the Bird's Nest back then originally, and then it became Natalia's Guest House, and now it has become Maro House. It keeps changing its name. And I stayed there for a long time. And thinking back, I never really sunk my teeth into that neighborhood in a pleasant way. Like, how you need to find your coffee shop, your noodle place, your lunch place, your dinner place. You sort of find your favorite places in that neighborhood. And I always had a bit of trouble. I had Vinijaya, which was the Indian banana leaf curry house right beside Maro House. I went there all the time. That was one of my go-to places for a good lunch. That was kind of my anchor meal for the whole day. And I had that worked out for me. But beyond that, it, to be honest, was a struggle. And I find that I'm in the same neighborhood here in the Kojoy, settling into this room, fantastic. Settling into the hotel as a whole, amazing. No complaints there at all. But then the neighborhood, I've been here a while now, not a month, but 3 weeks maybe. I was in Penang for 3 weeks when I first arrived back in Malaysia, 3 to 4 weeks. Then I came here. Oh yeah, I was staying at the Maro House for a while. Then here, so it's all still the same neighborhood. So I have been here for over a month, or maybe just about a month. But even within all that time, I still don't have any kind of routine for nice places to eat. I'm comparing this to my life in Thailand when I was staying in Mae Sot, and in the comparison, Kuala Lumpur does not come off well, because in Mae Sot, I had such a pleasant time. I had such a good time in Mae Sot, and I was aware of it at the time. And that's kind of rare when you think about it, to be very happy and content and to know it in the moment. As human beings, we always don't realize how happy we were until later. The classic, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. To do with everything, to do with your job, with where you're living, with relationships, with everything. We're just dumb that way. We just don't know. But when I was living in Mae Sot, I was quite content and appreciative of where I was and my surroundings. And in the moment, I was like, I could wake up in the morning and go, yeah, this is nice. This is a nice place to be. This is a nice time of my life. And I know I'm going to look back on it fondly. And I was aware of it at the time, which was quite rare for me. So I appreciated that. But I just always had such a selection of nice places to eat. And that was a big part of it. At my last guest house, just, there's the gate of my guest house, walk 50 feet to the left, and there was my favorite Filipino restaurant. And I could get such good meals there. And not just good meals, at a good price. They had all the ice water there, the big bucket of ice with the fresh drinking water. You could help yourself. Tables were comfortable. The people were amazing. They were so friendly. And every single time I could go there, and I just know it's going to be quiet, it's going to be peaceful, it's going to be nice. I'm going to have a nice meal, and it's going to be enjoyable. And I'd bring along my tablet, and I'd watch whatever TV show I was watching at the time, set it up on the table, chat with the woman that ran the place a little bit, and then tune into whatever show I was watching. It was so nice. Right across the road was an amazing place where I had a great noodle dish. Maybe 300 feet in that direction was my duck noodle place. And in that direction, of course, was Borderline. Just a few steps down the road, and there I am at Borderline for really good Burmese food, food from Myanmar, and on and on and on. Mesot for me was just filled with places where I could go, and I know exactly what the physical experience would be like. It would be gentle and quiet and pleasant and good food, and it was just, I don't know, it was just it's a big part of your life. Here in Chinatown, I'm sure there's amazing food all over the place, but for whatever reason, I haven't really stumbled into it, because I kind of need to stumble into things. And even the restaurants that I do go to that I end up having a good meal at and that I will return to, they are a bit of a struggle. Like even Vinijaya, which I like the food there, but it's a big, loud, chaotic, kind of crazy place. It's not like my lovely cafes in Mesot in any way, shape, or form. It's more like an industrial place where you heap the food on your plate and you eat it and you're full. But there's going to be noise, there's going to be confusion, there's going to be crowds. You're never quite sure what's going on. I go back, I eat there pretty much every day. I have one meal a day there, just about. And I like it, and I'll continue to go back there, but it's a bit fatiguing, the whole experience of being there. You kind of go there to your meal, and you're kind of glad to get up and leave because you just had enough. It's not pleasant, is what I'm saying. It's feed yourself, but it's not a pleasant environment. And then all the other restaurants that I've tried out in this neighborhood have been several steps way below that in terms of the comfort level and the craziness. I've had lots of really good meals and good eating experiences. I've been to, say, the Pudu Market a couple of times. You could go there for breakfast if you wanted to. But of course, for me to get there involves not a walk to the MRT station, and then and then several stops on the LRT actually, and then another walk to the market. So it's an effort to get there. But even when you go into the market, it's full on. It's loud and it's crowded, and it's an adventure, and it's something you would do as an experience. But I would never build that place into my daily routine. It's like, oh, I'm going to go have breakfast at Pudu Market this morning. No, you would go there. Maybe a new visitor comes to Kuala Lumpur to hang out with me, and I'm like, hey, do you want to check out Pudu, the ICC market there? And yeah, it's really interesting. We can go get popia and all these things. And they would go there as an experience, but it's not pleasant in any way. It's a full-on struggle, It's it's hot, sweaty, crowded, busy, So that's the kind of place it is. And almost all the restaurants around here are like that in some way. And part of that, of course, is the amount of money that I'm spending on these meals. If you spent quite a bit more money, of course, there are lovely restaurants all over the place. but that's not my kind of place. I'm sort of at that backpacker, low budget level of, daily budget for food and stuff like that. And I'm just looking for a simple dining experience. Actually, yesterday, I remembered I found a noodle place in the alleyways, buried deep in Chinatown, like near the Peddling Street Market. And that was one of my go-to places from before, and I completely forgot about this place until yesterday, and I went, oh yeah, that noodle place that I loved so much. I found it because I stayed for a few nights at the Grocer's Inn, which is kind of a historic hotel, kind of low budget but interesting kind of place in Chinatown. So I stayed there for a couple of nights, and right down the alley there were some eateries. And that was where I found this noodle place. And it was like right outside the door of Grocer's Inn. And then I would continue to walk there from other hotels, when I moved. So I thought, wow, okay, maybe I can work that place into my routine. It wasn't, it's nowhere near what I was describing in Mesot, because it's outside. It's in an alleyway. My friends, the rats, were in this alleyway as well. You could see them scurrying around all over the place. It's outdoors, and they're washing the big pots and things from hoses coming out of the walls, and your feet would get sprayed with water from time to time. A lot of people walking by. You're kind of hot because you're outside. The tables are kind of rickety. But the noodles were amazing. There was a big, hearty, filling bowl of noodles, and the people were great, and the system worked. I would show up. They knew what I wanted. I didn't really have to communicate that, and I knew how. It was just a good place, another anchor place for my diet. And I thought, wow, I forgot about that place. Let's go back there. So I went there yesterday, and gone. That whole alleyway system seemed to have maybe 10% of the little alleyway shops that used to be there. I guess they all went out of business during COVID. So another penalty, another effect of the shutdowns. But yeah, my noodle place anyway, either they moved or they went out of business. Anyway, they weren't there. So I wasn't able to get my noodles. So I'm still looking, and I haven't found anything that really fit into my life. And the neighborhood itself it's a bit rough. It really is. I've mentioned this a few times. Chinatown feels a lot rougher than it used to be. The homeless population has increased dramatically, and that has a big effect on just walking around. And yeah, it's a tough neighborhood. It's not, again, it's not Mesot. This is not friendly, gentle. It's amazing. I mentioned that with Mesot, I was aware of how much I liked the place while I was there. But even from a distance now, I find I'm appreciating it more and how much it suited me. Just the quality of life I had there, the scooter life, being able to just zip around inside this small town and then going out into the countryside within minutes and being in beautiful, farming countryside with hills and things. It was nice. And the contrast with where I am now could not be stronger. Even Penang, I could feel it happening. I was there for 3 weeks, and I could feel myself finding places. Oh, I love Yummy Cottage. Like that was my Vinijaya for Penang. That was my anchor meal every day there. But I kept finding little places here. Oh, this is nice. This is nice. This is nice. I was finding little places that I could incorporate into a nice life there. But it's just not happening here in Chinatown, not at all. Yeah, it's a bit of a struggle, and it's not just the restaurants and the coffee shops that I'm having trouble with. It's even the stores. Right around the corner from here, to tell a little story, there's a shop, like a kind of a low-budget grocery store, just around the corner. I'm actually kind of almost right on top of it. And I walked by it lots of times. I walked by. And then I thought, oh, I ran out of instant coffee one day and creamer. And I thought, oh, I wonder if they have coffee in there. Because it didn't look like a place that would carry very much. It looked sort of industrial, like one of these places that scrounges the warehouses of Malaysia looking for boxes of stock that are, almost at their expiration date, or they could get at a really cheap price, like kind of discounted stuff that they just slap on the shelves. It was almost like they take the cardboard boxes and cut them open and just put them on the shelf rather than, piling things up. And they had vegetables, and it's a bit of a wet market in the back, and they look kind of rough and ready as well. A cheap place is what I'm getting at. This was an inexpensive kind of grocery store. And I went in there and I found coffee, and all the packaging clearly looked like it had seen a rough life. This wasn't fresh from the Nescafe factory. This package of Nescafe had been on a journey to get to that shelf. But I bought some, and I bought some creamer, and I happened to see these little packages of crackers. Just, this long maybe, a substantial amount of crackers. And they were 1 ringgit per package. And I thought, oh, that would be nice over my cup of coffee, which I was going to have. So I bought 2 packages of these little crackers. And I went up to the counter and bought my coffee and bought my crackers. There's a bit of an adventure there. Even my first purchase was a bit of an adventure, but that's not the story I'm here to tell. But I got that, and I came back here, had my coffee, and the crackers were really good. And I thought, wow, that's a bargain at 1 ringgit. So the other day, it was on a weekend, I walked by that store, and I was on my way down this street coming back to the Kojo, and I thought, oh, I'll pop in and grab a package of crackers to have with my coffee. But this street is also really popular with, I believe they're from Bangladesh. This is a real Bangladeshi neighborhood. And there's a lot of workers from Bangladesh that congregate here. And I think on the weekend, they might get a day off, and like on a Sunday or something, or a Saturday, and there will be hundreds of them all around this neighborhood. And they congregate here waiting for some buses that seem to go to Klang. That seems to be what's going on. But I looked inside this grocery store where I get my crackers, and it was jammed. Big long lineups. There are two counters, 2 cash registers, and these Bangladeshi workers were just packed into this store. Big bags of stuff they were buying, and they're lined up at both sides on both cash registers. And my whole thing was pop in, grab the crackers, and get out. I mean, it was not an important shopping run. So I looked at that and thought, no, it's not worth it to me, and I just kept walking. And then the other day I was at Morrow House again, and I was moving out of my room. I'm now fully moved out of Morrow, and I happen to have a cardboard box there, an empty cardboard box. That was the only thing left in that room. And it was a nice box. It was one of the ones you buy from like mailboxes, etc. I remember I got it long ago when I was going to ship a box of stuff back to Canada. And I thought, oh, I could probably use that box. So, because I'm going to, I got a bunch of stuff here I don't need. I'll probably box it up and ship it to Canada or something. But I thought, nah, who knows? Maybe I'll have a use for this cardboard box. So, I can put it in the mail, or I can use it for garbage and put things outside, something. Storage. So anyway, I grabbed this empty cardboard box, and I'm walking along with it, and I'm coming down the street, and the street was really quiet, it was really empty, and I thought, crackers. I can get some crackers at that place as I go by. So I pop into the store, and my whole mentality was, because I knew where the crackers were, they're right there on the shelf, I'm going to pop in, grab the crackers, buy them, boom, I'm out the door. So I go walking into the store, I'm halfway to the crackers, and I hear some loud shouting, and I'm thinking, ooh, boy, somebody's in trouble. And I have this habit of I don't instinctively look when there's trouble. Like you hear a plate crash in a restaurant, everybody looks. For some reason, I have this thing where I try not to do that. I just keep looking where I'm looking, and I don't know why, because it's like a human instinct, and I don't want to be controlled by my instincts, maybe. So you hear a big crash, or like a car crash or something, and the instinct for all humans is to, oh, well, what's that? What happened? And they go rushing, and a crowd forms around the car crash. And I deliberately don't do that, just because I don't want to be to be a slave to my baser instincts, perhaps. So anyway, I hear this shouting. And I don't turn around because of that habit. It's like, you know, there's somebody fighting maybe, and I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, a fight, I gotta watch the fight. So I hear all this loud shouting, and I just keep walking into the store. And I notice that everybody's looking at me. It's like, why is everyone looking at me? So then I do finally turn around, and there was a very large woman from the cash register. I knew her because I'd seen her sitting there many times. She was up out of her stool, and she was like coming towards me. And I was like, what in the world is going on? She didn't like my box, you know, because theft. They're worried about shoplifters. And I guess they have a rule that you can't bring boxes in. And I turned around and I kind of went back to the, you know, the entrance to the store with her. And, you know, because she clearly was not going to let me, you know, she had no patience for me and my box whatsoever. There was no humanity here. There was no, oh, I'm sorry, sir, you know, but we have this policy. If you don't mind, could we put the box at the front and then you can go in? It was just, you know, it's like, well, I don't know why she had so much energy for this, you know, store policy, but she had a lot of energy to enforce it. So I go with her to the back to the front, and I kind of wanted to make a joke with her. I wanted to humanize our relationship, like bring it down from this level of anger that she was showing. I just wanted, because this happens quite a bit where you're in a new country, in a new neighborhood, and then you have a bad encounter with the staff there. You can never go back to that store anymore. You know what I mean? And if you have enough of these encounters, before you know it, you can't go anywhere anymore. So I like to keep things friendly if I can. And she was not being friendly, and I wanted to kind of make a joke with her about, you know, like, I was like, okay, I've got this box. Like, you think I'm going to walk around the store, open the box, and just sort of shovel things in and try to run out the door? You know, I'm here to get a 1 ringgit box of crackers. You know, that's all I want to get. You know, I don't think the box is worth all of this anger. But she was not meeting me halfway at all. There was no joke in her. So we get to the front, and I don't know where to put the box. It's a very crowded kind of place, and there's no, like, where does this box go? Put it here, put it here. And then she basically told me to put it on this, like an ice cream dispenser, like a refrigerated thing with the roll top doors on top. You can get ice cream out of it. And she's, oh, just put it there, you know, put it there. So I'm like, all right. And then I turned to go back and get the crackers, and then she yelled at me again, and I turned around, and then she pointed at me and said, bag, because I had my knapsack on, just my normal little red burgundy knapsack, and she was pointing at the shoulder straps and said, bag. And by then I'd had enough, you know, because in my bag I've got, you know, a very expensive smartphone, expensive camera gear, all of my personal information and stuff. And I'm not going to leave my bag here. She just had me dump my box on the ice cream container right by the front entrance. This place doesn't have a door and a security guard. It's not like she's going to take my knapsack, put it in a locker, and give me a number tag and put it, you know, lock it up with a key, and I get the key. Like, none of that was going on. She wanted me to take my knapsack and just sort of dump it on the ground near her. And obviously, she's not going to protect it. It's got nothing to do with her. You know, all she cared about was I can't take it into that store. And so by then I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done with you, and I'm done with this store. And I did say to her, I think my body demeanor was okay, but there's probably irritation on my face at this point. And she told me, you know, bag. And then I just said, no. You know, I'm not going to leave my bag here. If that's the policy here, then I will just go to another store. And then I told her that. She spoke English. And I said, I will just go to another store. I'm not going to leave my bag here. And then she just went, huh. And then she sat down at the cash register and turned her back to me. And that was the end. So I picked up my box, my cardboard box, which had caused all these problems, and then I left. And now apparently, yeah, I can never go back to that store ever again. But yeah, I don't like stores that have this no bag policy. I understand why they do theft, you know, shoplifting, but at the same time, I'm not a shoplifter. I'm not stealing. Like, again, I'm going in there to buy 1 ringgit of crackers. I mean, this is not a, they're not selling $6,000 watches, you know, that I can scoop into my bag. We're talking about discount junk all over the shelves. So kind of get over yourself in terms of what kind of a store you are. And if you want people to leave their bags outside, I don't know, you don't have to shout quite as much as you just did, is kind of how I felt about the whole situation. So I was like, all right, you know, there are a lot of stores. I don't have to go back to this one ever again. But now it is a convenient place. It's right there, and they do. And I keep thinking about those crackers. You know, like, wouldn't mind having, but now I can't go back ever. Yeah, so I lost 1 store in this neighborhood. But that whole encounter is a little bit indicative of the mood in this neighborhood. It's, like I said, it's a rough atmosphere here. And the homeless have a lot to do with that. I was coming back from Vinijaya the other day, and I've actually figured out a route that takes me through all these alleys, back alleys with the rats, because all the main streets, there will be homeless there. And you never quite know what you're going to get with a group of homeless people, right? There's some pretty wild ones out there and some very unpleasant ones. And you may not have a good experience walking by them because they're, you know, they're there on the pavement with, you know, cardboard boxes that they've broken open to make beds and things like that. And there was one guy in particular on the main road near Vinijaya. Big guy, big gut on him. And he's always just sitting there in just 1 small pair of shorts. So I wouldn't call him naked, but he's on his way to naked. He's going to get there eventually. And he sort of built himself a little empire of cardboard. He's making a home there, cardboard boxes, still, you know, kind of a wall of them. And he just sits there on the cardboard. And he gets these free lunches, the lunch boxes that the charities bring, you know, to give to the homeless. That's how he lives. You know, he eats those boxes, lunch boxes. And I'm walking down there the other day. I decided to take the main street for whatever reason instead of my alleys. And then I'm approaching him. I get up right beside him, and then he picks up something and throws it in my direction, and it hits the ground and goes bump, 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 and then hits me in the ankle. And I look down, and it's one of the lunch boxes. So he'd had a lunch box, eaten maybe half of it, half of the rice, half of whatever's in there, and then he took the plastic bag it was tied up in, that it was in, he tied up the top of it, and then he just sort of threw it. He wasn't throwing it at me, he didn't see me at all, he was just getting rid of his garbage. And instead of, you know, disposing of it, because there really aren't a lot of garbage cans anyway, you know, so what can he do with his you know, leftovers from lunch? And he basically sits there on the sidewalk, and he just threw it in the direction of the street. So he just kind of threw it all over his shoulder in that direction, and it came thumping along the sidewalk and hit me. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. And just things like that happen a lot. And then yesterday, I had an experience that kind of took this to a new level. I tried to find my noodle shop. And because I went to the noodle shop and it wasn't there anymore, I decided, okay, let's just go back to Vinijaya for lunch. And I went there following a different route because I'd taken a detour into Chinatown to go to this noodle place. It wasn't there anymore. And I went down a road that I haven't gone down for a while. Main road. It was like a main road. And so I'm walking along, and then just ahead of me, I see some men in uniforms. I'm not sure I recognize the uniforms, but they were kind of like police, but not quite. I'm not quite sure what they were. And then there was a official-looking truck or a van there that looked medical. And I'm walking down the sidewalk, and then there was one of these uniformed men, looked like police, like a police officer standing on the sidewalk, and then he looked at me walking towards him, and then he kind of pointed at me, and then he indicated, he was pointing where I should go, and he was pointing to the back of this medical van, you know, saying, no, you, as if he was pulling people over. And of course, my brain races immediately. It's like, okay, what's this? And because it looks like I was being told to pull over. I wasn't riding anything, so I wasn't pulling over on a bicycle or a scooter. I was walking, but it was like he was pulling over pedestrians and telling them to go to this medical facility. And I thought, oh, the first thing I think is, oh, COVID. This must be like a random COVID check. I'm being pulled over and they're going to bundle me into this van and take me to the hospital for a COVID check or something like that. Or I had this funny thought because I was feeling kind of tired. I've been tired a lot lately, and I've had headaches and things, and I got big bags under my eyes, and I'm walking along and I'm not feeling the best. I'm not looking the best. I felt that way. And I thought, can that guy see it on me? Did he look up and he says, man, this guy needs medical help. Do I look that bad? And was he like, oh, you get into the ambulance, we're going to take you away. And I thought, okay, maybe he sees something in my face that I must be sick or something. And he's like, oh, go this way. So all those thoughts went through my mind. And then I walked up to the back of the van, and it obviously looked like I was going to stop there because he told me to go there. So I'm walking up to this medical truck of some kind, and I'm slowing down, and I'm kind of looking at the guy waiting for more instructions. And he could tell that I was confused, that I didn't know what was going on. And then he made it more clear, and he pointed at the sidewalk and said, dead. And then what he was telling me was, I can't walk down the sidewalk because there was a dead body there. I have to walk around the truck. So what he was telling me was not go to the ambulance. He was telling me to walk out into the street, walk around the ambulance, and then continue on the other side. And yeah, on the other side, I said that I don't look at these things, but I was involved in this situation, so this time I did look. And when I got around to the other side of the ambulance, I stopped for a second to look back, and I saw the body of a man, an elderly man, lying there on the sidewalk. And he was clearly one of the homeless. And I didn't stay around and examine the scene carefully. I just sort of looked to take in the situation overall and continued on my way. But based on just the brief look that I got, I didn't see anything wrong with him. It's like it wasn't the result of a car accident. His body wasn't damaged in any way. He wasn't bleeding. There was nothing like that. He had, I think, just died in his sleep. He lay down on the sidewalk and he was sleeping there, and then he passed away during the night, or perhaps he was there during the day and then suffered a heart attack or a stroke. Who knows? That's what the men in the uniforms, I guess, will figure out eventually, and that's why they're there with the medical truck, and they're blocking people from walking along the sidewalk because the dead body. And yeah, things like that just sort of seem to happen in this neighborhood quite a bit. And even when things like that don't happen, you're still dealing with a lot of heavy traffic, foot traffic, and car traffic. For me to get from where I am at the Côte Joy to anywhere else in Chinatown, like Pasar Station or Vinijaya or any of these places, I have to cross the main street right there. I forget the name of it, but there's a main road right there, very, very busy one. And just crossing that road is an adventure. There are lights there at the corner and you can wait for them, but even that, again, of course, you can't count on cars actually stopping or seeing the lights. So it's not like you can ever let your guard down. So even if you push the button, then you wait until you get the happy green man telling you that you can walk across, you still, you're on your guard the whole time. You're looking, okay, they're slowing down. They see the red light, okay, good, and now I can go. And you're on your guard all the time. There's just a lot of traffic. Motorcycles, motorcycles rarely pay attention to traffic lights. They'll zip around the corner at a red light anyway, things like that. So it's a very busy, crazy, kind of chaotic neighborhood, which I like. To be honest, I enjoy this sort of environment, which is why I end up living in them all the time. But I do have to say that I haven't quite, as I started this story talking about, I haven't really found my comfort zone in this neighborhood yet. You know, the places where I know I'd like to go to get something to eat. And part of that is I haven't really done a hard search either. It's not like I've gone out looking, you know, trying out a whole bunch of places, going to new streets and things like that. And of course, I could find these places if I raised my budget considerably. You know, there are lots of nice restaurants in this area too, but they are not the kinds of places where you would go to eat every day. You just couldn't afford, at least I can't afford that kind of meal, you know, every day. I need my basic noodle place, you know, like I had in Mesot, duck noodles in my Filipino restaurant to supply me with those simple, basic meals that just keep you going, you know, day to day. And I haven't found them here, at least not yet, but I'm still looking. In terms of other random thoughts on my brain, I find that I'm thinking about some YouTube videos about Malaysia and about Kuala Lumpur. Yeah, I don't remember it being like this before. Like before the pandemic, I don't remember so many people making YouTube videos as they travel around the world. There are so many of them now. And so many of them come to Kuala Lumpur and come to Malaysia in general. There's like an endless wave of them, new ones, constantly arriving. And I noticed a trend for these videos. Of course, they're very similar because they're all, you know, your basic backpackers. They're usually a couple. They tend to be the most popular YouTubers, I think, a guy and a girl traveling together. And they're coming to Malaysia, coming to Kuala Lumpur for the first time. And I noticed, though, that the titles of their videos all follow the same pattern. And I'm wondering do they all come by these titles, the video titles, honestly? Like, does every single YouTuber that shows up have the same experience and come up with the same video title on their own? Or have they seen all the other YouTubers and their videos, looked at their titles, and basically copied their titles? Because they seem to be very popular titles. These videos get a lot of views by Malaysians in particular, and I wonder if all these YouTubers have seen the pattern and they figured out, oh, if we name our video this, then a lot of people will watch our video. Because I made a few notes. Just last night, I mean, if I'd been making these notes for the past 2 months, I would have dozens of them. But it was just last night, a couple of new ones showed up, and they all follow this pattern, where they will say in giant letters, "Can't believe it! Is this KL? This is Kuala Lumpur? We couldn't believe it! We were shocked! Can't believe this is Malaysia! Shocking! Amazing! We were wrong about Malaysia!" All the videos have that same title. Every single one, almost. And it isn't just Kuala Lumpur. Like, I've noticed these YouTubers will come to Kuala Lumpur and say, "Kuala Lumpur is amazing. We were shocked. We didn't expect this." That will be their Kuala Lumpur video. And then they will go to somewhere new. Malacca or Genting Highlands, Cameron Highlands. And then the same thing. "We were shocked. We couldn't believe this. We weren't expecting this." And I end up thinking, well, what were they expecting? I mean, they don't say that about any other place. You look at their videos, they go to Bangkok or Saigon, they go to Cambodia, wherever they go. It's not like, we were shocked. They kind of go to those countries and then they have their experience there and they make a video about them. But everyone who comes to Malaysia says the same thing, that Malaysia surprises them to the point of them being shocked. And they all are shocked. And I was wondering, why are they so shocked? What is it about Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia that amazes all these people? You know, what surprises them? Like, what were their expectations when they came here? And why are they so surprised when they see it? I don't know. I remember when I first came to Kuala Lumpur, sure, I'd never I had been here before, actually. I'd been here many, many years ago, decades ago, so it wasn't my first time. Even when I came here this time, it wasn't my first time. But it was so long ago that I had no memories of the place. So when I flew here from the Philippines, now years ago now, I didn't know what to expect. I had no memories of what Malaysia was like. I didn't know really what Kuala Lumpur was like. I did a lot of reading online. I looked at pictures. I looked at this and that, and I developed a sense of what the place would be like. And then when I came here, you know, lots of things. It was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's what Kuala Lumpur is like. That's what Malaysia is like. Oh, interesting, huh? But I wasn't shocked. I wasn't amazed. You know, my mind wasn't blown away by how radically different it was from my expectations, because I didn't really have any expectations. I had mild expectations based on what I'd seen online, but nothing particularly set in stone. I was going to a new country, and when I got to the new country, I'd find out what it was like when I got there. That's just kind of normal. So why are all these YouTubers so astonished, all of them, when they get here? Yeah, I just find that kind of interesting. What is it about Malaysia that gets this reaction from people? And I wonder, yeah, just been thinking about that lately. So that's it for my thoughts for this morning. I think I've been talking for quite a long time. I can feel my throat is almost worn out, so I've been talking too much. So time to go outside and find something to eat. And I say, I just don't even know where to go at this point. I don't have a breakfast place. Might even just wait till lunch and go to Vinijaya for lunch. We'll see. And we'll see if I have any adventures along the way. Can't get any crackers though. No crackers. All right, that is it for behind the scenes for this morning. And I'll see you in the next video.